This afternoon, having a conversation with Julie Falls. Julie has just recently joined the LMI UK team, and we are thrilled to have her on board. Thought this would be a great opportunity to find out a little bit more about Julie, what her background is, what her particular interest is, and passions around leadership, experiences around leadership, and what she brings to the leadership development world, how she came to be working with us as part of LMI. Julie, uh, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. It's good to speak with you today. I'm looking forward to the conversations. Right.
I'm just going to throw it at you straight away and say, Julie, tell us a bit about yourself, your background, your history that's leading up to where you find yourself today.
I describe myself as a recovering chief HR officer. I have just moved back to the UK after spending 18 years in Canada. I was in Calgary, Alberta, and had a fabulous career there and worked with a number of great organizations and people. And I'm back home now. So home is Chelmsford in Essex. I was brought up in this area, made the move overseas and had a fabulous time, but yeah, back here now. So yeah, I'm a recovering chief HR officer. My career started way back, more years than I'm going to admit to publicly. In recruitment, I worked for a search firm and I ran a temps desk. And that was my first taste of working with people and helping people achieve what they want to achieve with their careers, with their jobs. And it was such a fulfilling thing to do and really understand the motivations of people and what they want to do with their life and how they want to progress it and what they want to do with their career. I spent about 10 years in that world before I then moved on to the HR side. It was a really good grounding to understand people and how they contribute to organizations and the profound effect they can have on the organization's success. So I adored doing that work. And then I wanted to come in house and see the other side of the desk. What happens when somebody's in an organization? What support do they get? How do they progress their careers? What are their experiences like? And that's really been the ethos of my whole HR career. We can get a bad rap sometimes being in HR, but
Yes, for
my
sure.
approach has always been, how do we make the people better in the organization? How do we make the employee experience better? Which ultimately comes down from good leadership practices. So that's really why I got into doing what I do. I'm back in Chelmsford, back in the UK, and now I'm looking to take that to the next step. When I stumbled across LMI, it was a perfect package for me because it talks about all the things I've been talking about for years and packages up beautifully for organizations, for individuals to be able to really lead themselves first before leading others. That's a big philosophy in mine.
Great. Yeah, loads to explore, starting in recruitment, getting into in-house HR, and then specifically the focus on leadership and what
Yeah.
it looked like. Going right back to the beginning, did you know that your interest particularly lied in people right at the beginning when you got into recruitment, or was that an interest that developed during the role or a bit of both?
So that was more luck than judgment. I stumbled into the recruitment job. I don't think back in those days anyone planned to do it. Now you can do degrees for it, but you couldn't back then. I stumbled into that job because I got fired from my very first one out of school. I used to work as a buyer's assistant in a fashion house in London, a retail brand fashion house in London. And it was all data crunching and looking at numbers and looking at spreadsheets, which was so not me. And it's not an area that I'm comfortable in. And I was horrible at it, absolutely horrible at it. Ultimately, didn't make it in that role. It wasn't the right fit for me. And then I stumbled into recruitment and I got to see how powerful putting the right person in the right role is for that person, for that company, and for the ultimate success. So yeah, luck rather than judgment.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that as we do the careers podcast and we tell different career stories. Always fascinated by how did people get to where they've got to and
Yeah,
what was the triggers along the way in terms of, oh, I like this and interested there. And that's
yeah,
fascinating. Great. So,
yeah.
so then you went in-house and got into having this interest in people and
That's right.
talk a lot about uh, improving businesses through people. What have you seen, or could you give us a few thoughts around What does that internal HR looking after people, when it's done badly, what does it look like, and what does doing it well look like? Because certainly
Yeah.
some watching will be in HR and doing similar roles, or responsible. They run a business, and so they're responsible for that organization.
As you said, HR teams can get a really bad rap, through no fault of their own. A lot of the time, it's dependent on the leadership of the organization, how they view their function and what's important to them. We've seen a real shift over the past few years for it being a very transactional function that does administration work and hires and fires. And the organizations have moved on from that. There is much more opportunity now for HR teams to get involved strategically with the organization. The outputs from a good HR team impact the business and profitability and ultimately success. So I think a lot of organizations are starting to realize that now. And as cliched as it is, investing in people is key to that. And that investment in people doesn't come just in cash compensation. It comes in developing and training and giving people opportunities to grow their careers. So I've worked with some phenomenal HR leaders over my career, and I take a little piece of everything they've done and make it my own and emulate them as much as I can, because there are some really good practitioners in that space that do incredible work. The ultimate leadership needs to be behind that strategy from an HR perspective.
Sure, that's certainly a message that I would also endorse when you
Yeah,
the leadership of an organization connected with the HR and learning and development function, and they're
that's right.
communicating well and on the same page. That's really powerful, as opposed to that disconnect.
That's right. Yeah.
Sometimes happens and isn't.
Oh, yeah. It can
Yeah.
happen for sure. 100%. We're seeing a
Yes.
good shift in that space, though.
So specifically leadership, what, tell us a bit more about why the focus on leadership with the move back from Canada to the UK. Why did what you saw about LMI, and particularly a focus on leadership, why did that resonate and connect, and why is that such a big subject for you?
It is a huge subject for me. And there's so many misconceptions around leadership being tied to title. And I'm not a leader until I become a manager. I'm not a leader until I become a vice president or whatever that happens to be. And one of the things I've coached hundreds of people over my career, leadership is something you do, not something you're called. And I think that's critical for folks to understand that. So when I looked at the LMI program, the very first module is effective personal productivity. And it's that concept of leading yourself first and knowing how you contribute and being able to then demonstrate leadership competencies wherever you are, regardless of your title and what it is you're doing. So that really resonated with me. I've coached managers, I've coached non-managers, and some of the best leaders I've seen have been in non-managerial roles. They're people that can bring folks together collectively to have a good vision, have a good idea on what they want to do on a project, and they don't need a manager title to do it. That's why LMI really resonated with me, because there's the progression with the training courses through strategic leadership all the way through. So it's a package that individuals or organizations can go through all of them or take one or two of them, and it still has an impact on what they do.
Yeah, fantastic. And
Yeah.
again, I'm conscious of how much experience you have, and you've mentioned having worked with, yeah, loads of people in loads of different contexts. What are some of the things, regardless of position or title, and that's certainly a concept that resonates really strongly with myself with LMI generally around leadership, is how you show up every day. It's not what's on your business card or the plaque on your door. Good leadership qualities. What are some of the things that you've seen that really make a difference for somebody in their career, that you're invested in helping people to develop?
I think good leaders are values led. Every organization will have their values on the boardroom wall or on their website. You talk to the average employee and they either don't know what those values are or will scoff because the organization doesn't align with those values. For me, any good leader has to have a sense of their intrinsic values that they bring and what's guiding them ultimately, and show up every day, making decisions based on those values. That's the baseline for me, an absolute baseline for me. The next piece is recognition that as leaders, we don't know everything. We still learn from everyone else in the room, everyone else around the table, and must be willing to do that and show up with that level of curiosity. The Ted Lasso quote, be curious. I think there are so many leadership lessons from Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I'm
There,
with you on that. For sure.
right? um, it's that curiosity, it's the willingness to listen to different perspectives and understand that just because you do it one way doesn't mean that's the only way the results can be achieved. So they're the two things that are imperative for me with leaders.
Yeah, fantastic. Um, and again, we're in a world of leadership development, of learning, training, coaching, and it's so easy to get hold of information these days. You could put any question into an AI tool and get a great treatise on what good leadership looks like. Accessibility to the right information is it's fantastically available and to be utilized, of course.
That's right.
Something different about going through the process of leadership development, coaching, support, and accountability, and that process side of things. Uh, what do you have a thought on that in terms of leaders who say, "I want to grow, I want to develop, I want to become a better leader"?
Yeah, I do. As you said, you can throw questions into AI. There is an inordinate amount of influencers out there that will post information that you look on Amazon for leadership books, and there are thousands to choose from, absolutely
Sure.
thousands. And you can have a very scattered approach to where you're finding your information without any consistency. I think what some of that can be very abstract. It can be some very big ideas that make sense as an idea, but what's missing is the application and that support through the application. And that's what I like about the LMI process. The big ideas are there, as we would expect to see with any kind of leadership book, philosophy, whatever that happens to be. But the difference is the application is mapped out on how to do it and how to be better in that space. I think that's the difference that is often missing. I've done a lot of leadership coaching in my corporate careers over the years. They tend to be one and done sessions in a room with a group of people. And we have conversations, we may get some role plays in and that kind of thing. There's a few takeaways, but then everyone goes back to their regular day job and forgets about the 6 hours they've just spent in the training room.
Right.
LMI forces through the way it's structured to be focusing it on a daily basis because it's about developing habits over time. It's not a big chunk of time once. It's about smaller amounts of time over a longer period. And that's why I think it's a really good program and concept from that perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. Fascinating, isn't it? The rigor it takes to
Yes,
affect attitudes and behaviors over the long term.
that's
Yeah,
right. That's
and
right.
information doesn't do that. Otherwise, all the books I've read would have logged and I'd be doing all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I'd
I
be
look to my bookcase over here, there's
yes,
probably about a dozen on there.
yes.
I've got a third of the way through and then I've
Yeah,
stopped.
I'd be a much better chef if I could read something once and then have mastered it.
Right?
That thing of ongoing practice and
That's right. That's right.
getting
Yeah.
good at stuff. I like the mantra we have of the 6 weeks, 6 months, and 6 years. What we're doing, what are we learning? How are we putting some things into practice that's going to have
Yeah.
an impact in 6 weeks' time, but still in 6 months' time, and ultimately 6 years later, because it's become embedded in the way that we show up and the way that we lead ourselves and
That's
others.
right.
Yeah.
100%. And I've been involved in this world for over 20 years now. And having gone through the, the first LMI course, there are so many things I'm learning about myself, about how to do things I've that are just new to me, even despite doing all the work I've done in this space for 20 years. So it's a great program.
Excellent. Good. We're pleased that you think so. Take no credit for doing that. These programs and the LMI
Yep.
organization has been around for 60 years. We're always saying to people, it's not the content, it's the content alongside the facilitated outcomes, the action, the accountability, the
Yeah.
practice and the review and all those sorts of things that go together to make a development process that is worth its salt. Yeah, interesting. Julie, it's exciting because it's new and you're exploring opportunities and you bring some fantastic experience and expertise to what we're doing, who is it particularly that you think you can help, that you're looking to connect with? Where do you see the best opportunities for you to add the most value to organizations?
Yeah, so my experience of working with organizations over the past few years has been technical organizations. So in that engineering space, manufacturing space, where you've got some really smart people technically who need support in moving the needle on what used to be called softer skills, but I think they're just skills now from a leadership perspective, whether that's communication, whether that's how to understand what motivates people. I love working with those groups of people because they're so receptive to learn something new and they like a framework. And this gives them a framework to work within. It isn't abstract. So those small, medium-sized organizations that have these technical biases to them, I find really interesting to work with.
Yeah, certainly. There's a great opportunity to take technical expertise and fantastic business ideas,
That's right.
then
That's
connect
right.
it with great leadership. And we know when in any organization, for any individual leader, when you marry those two things together, that becomes really exciting.
That's when
Yes.
the magic happens,
Yeah.
right?
Anything else, Julie, that you think is useful for people to know about you in the context of hearing a bit about your career history, what your experience is, and yeah, what else?
Yeah, so I've always described myself as being a business person that just happens to specialize in the HR and people side of things. And when I've worked with clients, when I've worked with organizations, I'm very much looking at what's fit for purpose. What makes sense for that organization, that individual is really important because it's not a one size fits all approach. It's interesting to get to know a business, get to know the people working within the business, what their strategy is, how we can use the people to reach the strategy. So that's a big passion of mine. And I really enjoy being in that space, being in that work.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, we love it when we and those that we get to work with are really operating within their area of passion as we connect values and purpose, and it all comes together with a
Yes.
sense of yeah, passionate mission. Exciting stuff. We are uh, thrilled to have you as part of the team. Really excited about what the end of this year and into next year, 2025, will hold. Thank you, Julie, for giving us a bit of your time.
Thanks, Nick. It was great.